Try not to smush him, because I don't want to.
What is it?
It's a bug.
He said pieces.
Yeah, but
He said too many pieces now.
classes. So we got a big book of Hosea, and I'm going to try to finish it all tonight. So that usually means you can't dive in, quite as deep or quite as chapter by chapter. So what I thought we do, we kind of recap those main chapters in Hosea, chapter 1 through 3, get the gist there, and then I've got a few kind of topics I want to cover that Hosea covers a lot. So instead of chapter by chapter, we'll look at a certain topic and see it. There's a couple key words or key topics that just keep popping up in the book of Hosea. So that's what we'll do tonight. Just a little recap. So Hosea, we're set in the divided kingdom period. So after Saul, David, Solomon, after the kingdoms divide, somewhere in between the divided kingdom and then obviously before the fall of the northern kingdom in 721. That's where Hosea and actually several of the prophets, probably I guess half of them, fall into this period, which is interesting because a lot of the times they're prophesying some of the same things, like, hey, be careful, turn back to God, or else destruction, judgment will come upon you. Well, God clearly didn't just send one guy, he sent 6 at least, probably many others, I'm sure, that were preaching this to both the northern and southern kingdom. And then after the northern kingdom falls in 721, we still see several other prophets coming to the southern kingdom before that happens. So we're right in this kind of in this range of around the time period of Jeroboam II, which was of the house of Jehu. Pretty much the only time you have at least some semblance of stability and prosperity in the northern kingdom, but pretty quickly, as soon as his son comes to reign, he only lasts like a couple months, and that's the end of the dynasty. And from that point on, you can see all these short time periods. That right column, very quick little reigns by these kingdoms. It's gonna spiral pretty quick for the northern kingdom of Israel. Judah obviously is going to last another 150 years or so, and they have a little more stability in their dynasties, but also suffer from some bad kings along the way. If you remember these first 3 chapters of Hosea, kind of different from the last half of Hosea, the last 12, 11 chapters. it's a lot more prose. It's not as much of the prophecy and or a lot of the poetry that we see scattered throughout a lot of the minor prophets. But we talked about this 2 weeks ago. How Hosea, he's told to go take himself a wife of whoredom, for the land commits great whoredom by forsaking the Lord. He goes and marries Gomer, and this is supposed to be kind of an analogy or a parallel between God's relationship with Israel, how he takes Israel as his wife in a sense, and what does Israel do but turns around and commits adultery with the Baals and the other idols. So of course we have these 3 children. Each of them have a name that has some significance here. The first one's named Jezreel, with some reference to the house of Jehu and some events that happened in Jezreel. The next one's name is No Mercy, because the Lord will not have mercy on the house of Israel, but I will have mercy on the house of Judah. And then that third one is called Not My People, for you are not my people, and I am not your God. That's the situation with Hosea. The northern kingdom barely, if at all, acknowledges the Lord as their God, and throughout the book of Hosea, he's going to appeal to their history and to everything that he's done to basically make a case against them, to say, hey, this is what I've done. This is what you've done. You've forgotten me. You have no knowledge of me. That's why we're here today. That's why this destruction, this punishment is coming, and turn it around quick, or trouble's going to be there. But we'll see a lot with Hosea that there'll be a stretch of some pretty dark language. Bad things are going to happen. Bad things are happening. But there's always Hosea's always goes back to the love and the mercy of God, and a hope for a better future if they would just come back. Look at in Hosea 1 verse 10. It says, "Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be like the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured or numbered. And in the place where it was said to them, you are not my people," remember the names of the children, "it shall be said of them, children of the living God. And the children of Judah and the children of Israel shall be gathered together. They shall appoint for themselves one head. They shall go up from the land, for great shall be the day of Jezreel." There's another name of the children. "And say to your brothers, you are my people, and to your sisters, you have received mercy." We have this turnaround of these 3 children and their names and their meanings getting flipped over, and now those things are we're looking forward to a time in the future where the children of Israel are gathered again together as children of God. Toward the end of chapter 2, we also see this. It kind of starts off negative, but we have this kind of positive twist here at the end, talking about how the Lord, they will no longer call. You will call me my husband and no longer my Baal. It's not just I guess my Baal. The translation is kind of like my Lord. It's not that type of relationship. It's a more of a relationship between a husband and wife. That's what the Lord is desiring. And I love this verse right at the end of chapter 2. It's not just a list of things that the Lord wants in this relationship, but it's really a good list for a husband and wife. "And I'll betroth you to me forever. I'll betroth you to me in righteousness and justice and steadfast love and mercy, and I'll betroth you to me in faithfulness, and you shall know the Lord." That word "know," that's going to be one of our topics I want us to look through and kind of pluck that out throughout the book of Hosea here in the time that we have left. Let's see. let's look specifically. We didn't get to this one, so let's look at chapter 3. If you want to turn there, chapter 3, and we'll read this one. It's actually a pretty short chapter, only 5 verses. Yep. Let's read that together here. And the Lord said to me, "Go again, love a woman who is loved by another man and is an adulteress, even as the Lord loves the children of Israel, though they turn to other gods and love cakes of raisins. So I bought her for 15 shekels of silver, and a homer and a letek of barley. And I said to her, you must dwell as mine for many days. You shall not play the whore or belong to another man, so I will also be to you. For the children of Israel shall dwell many days without king or prince, without sacrifice or pillar, without ephod or household gods. Afterward the children of Israel shall return and seek the Lord their God, and David their king, and they shall come in fear to the Lord and to his goodness in the latter days." So back in chapter 1, we have, Hosea, he's married Gomer. We have these 3 children, possibly not even his own children, but she has 3 children. And we kind of had this poetic section in chapter 2. And now we have chapter 3, go again and love a woman. What's happened in between? Gomer took a trip, yeah. She's not specifically mentioned, but if it's not talking about her, then it the whole analogy kind of falls by the wayside there. We're talking about one nation, Israel. We're not talking about God loved Israel and then they left, so now he loves Edom or something like that. That kind of defeats the whole analogy. So I'm pretty sure we're talking about Gomer here. Apparently her waywardness has escalated to the point where she has left, not just cheated and committed adultery, but actually left Hosea and not returned. And yet here's the Lord telling him, go again and what? Just bring her back? Love her, yeah. I mean, that's what's crazy about this. It's not just all right, go drag her back over here, chain her to the house and make sure she doesn't do it again. He's told, despite all the things that she's done, that go and love this woman who is still loved, who's loved by her her fellow adulterer over there. And is an adulteress. There's no, she could have been, we don't know for sure. No, she's an adulteress. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt in Hosea's mind at this point. I mean, there's enough evidence, whatever that is, to believe that. And yet, he's supposed to go and love her again. Of all the tasks that have been asked of people in the history of the Bible and the history of whatever, as often as God tells people to go do crazy things, this is about as difficult a task as could be done. It's not hard to go grab her, but to actually love her again, I feel like that is a tall task. Melanie's told me if I ever ran off and cheated on her, she would kick me to the door. So I believe her. She'd kick me and kick me to the door at the same time. So I don't want to be kicked. So I'm not doing that.
Items, don't they add up to the price of a slave?
Yeah, the 15 shekels. We've seen people bought and sold for shekels of silver before, right? Both in the Old Testament, think back to Joseph and his brothers, and then all the way to Jesus and being sold for shekels. Typically, this is in reference just to the price of a slave. How much a slave would cost to purchase or to sell. So it's kind of interesting because it's not just 15 shekels; it's some extra stuff attached to it. So you kind of wonder what that is. So that actually adds to the whole thing. Not only does Hosea got to go get her and love her again, but he's got to pay for her too, because whatever's happened, she's either enslaved or she's in debt or something. He's actually got to spend his own money to get her out of the situation that she's in. And one thought about chapter 2 was he didn't have enough money to pay off her debt, so he's got to scrounge together some extra stuff, the homer and latex of barley, whatever that is. He didn't have enough coins, so he's got to, sell his car or something, basically, to be able to pay for her. That kind of thing. That could have been a possibility, but he brings her back, but he's got some stipulations this time, right? He says, "You must dwell as mine for many days. You shall not play the whore or belong to another man. So will I also be to you." So there's some rules she's got to follow. Should have followed them in the first place, but it kind of seems one thought with verse 3 and verse 4, because it talks about how the Israel shall dwell many days without king or prince, without sacrifice or pillar, without ephod or household gods. What time period do you think this is talking about? Israel dwelling many days without king or prince. Captivity, yeah. I mean, especially after Jerusalem fell, for those 70 years until the return happened, there was no more king. There was no sacrifices or pillars, or there was no priesthood. That's what the ephod's talking about. There was no religion. The Jewish religion was, basically non-existent. The corporate, all that stuff was done. There was no temple. There was no priesthood really during that time. So there is this period of dwelling without these things. But afterward, the children of Israel shall return and seek the Lord their God and David their king, and they shall come in fear to the Lord and to his goodness in the latter days. So remember, the northern kingdom of Israel had rejected not just the Lord, but also the Davidic dynasty. Well, now all the children of Israel shall return and seek the Lord and David their king. So obviously there's a lot of there's some messianic foretelling, I think, that's happening here, that shall come in fear of the Lord and to his goodness. Whenever you hear the latter days, what should we think of? Yeah, the messianic age, basically from the time of Jesus, continuing now, the church age. That's typically what we're talking about when we hear the latter days. We are in the latter days right now, after the cross, basically. So this kind of an interesting bookend to this first section, this whole object lesson with Hosea. He takes this wayward wife. She has children. She leaves him, and he's got to go and love her again. Well, now think about that pair. There's God. Great. That's fun.